Hi! I want to talk to you about power dynamics in dating relationships, especially in the early stages. Power dynamics operate on a subtle level and they take some time to understand and balance respectfully. So, oftentimes, younger men will do things that are out of balance, but it's unintentional. And this video is a bit harder to do than others because power dynamics can operate on a subconscious level. So, I have read a little bit about this dynamic in an article called Love and Power in Psychology Today, which I'm going to read from in a little bit. But first, on the one hand, it's about the golden rule, right? Just treat others how you would like to be treated. But it's not that easy because, on the other hand, if someone has been mistreated in past relationships, be they love relationships or familial relationships, they may have unintentionally created what I call relationship sabotaging defense mechanisms. These repel others, and it obviously complicates things for the person with them, and they may not understand what's going on. Now, older women know a lot about power dynamics in relationships and will often make sure that in their relationships there is reciprocity. Single older women tend to have been through relationships in the past which have had power imbalances. Recently, a man I was dating stated that he thinks that all dating is one big power struggle. And young men tend to say they enjoy the company of older women because older women don't play games. Well, putting those two together, you can see it has to be a reciprocal relationship with the younger men not playing games either, right? So if an older woman suspects she is being mistreated, she will not necessarily say something right away. And she may not say anything at all and just stop seeing you and leave you wondering why. So what are the things that will cause this to happen? The first is very obvious, and that is not following through or not being where you say you're going to be, when you say you're going to be there, not doing the things you say you're going to do. Okay, these are really obvious. It's going to tell her you're flaky, and if you can't be somewhere on time and be punctual, then she's not going to trust you. So don't waste her time, don't be flaky, and be punctual. Next, if she invites you to her place, it's only polite that you reciprocate by offering to host her the next time. And this is the case even if you have roommates and you are making up excuses not to bring her over. If you're making up excuses to not bring her over and you're worried about what your roommates think, then you probably shouldn't be dating an older woman in the first place because you have insecurities and you probably aren't mature enough to be with an older woman. But also, if you live a distance away from each other, if one of you is driving more than the other, then that person should be compensated for the gas and the extra time and effort that they are making in the relationship. Next, assume she is multi-dating, but don't try to make her jealous by talking about your other dates. To level the playing field. Most likely, this will just tell her you are insecure and are trying to play games with her. Similarly, don't compare her to your ideal woman. She will sense you are doing this and reject you before you can reject her. These are kind of what I call high school games that younger men tend to play to prey upon the insecurities of a young woman. And older women don't have these insecurities, so it doesn't work on them, and she will just reject you before you have a chance to reject her. So you should be past fixating on ideal women and all of this, and be ready to accept a real woman if you are dating an older woman. Next, cultivating romance. Cultivating romance will go a long way toward building trust and balance, and romantic times allow both people to be vulnerable with each other, and the defenses I referred to at the beginning will come down. A big part of romance is communication. If you do not communicate with an older woman, she will not be able to trust you. And by communication, I mean listening to her and responding appropriately to what she says, in other words, in the context of what she's saying, and sharing thoughts and feelings about your own life, in other words, being vulnerable. Now, this article in Psychology Today titled Love and Power, which is linked below, points out that intimacy has fallen these days to couples, whereas in past societies that intimacy was shared with a broader range of people as far as this the intimacy being shared in a broader social group and familial ties. But if you think about it, these days, men especially are less likely to share with their male friends or family things that they would share with their lover in their life. And even women, I think this applies to as well. So this emphasizes to me the importance of equality being established all the way at the beginning of the dating period. So reading from Psychology Today, it says, denying the dignity of one partner has consequences, not only for relationship stability and happiness, but for health. Power, says Berkeley psychologist Dr. Keltner, has distinct biological correlates. The quote, new science of power, emerging from his decades-long research, shows that, quote, people with power tend to behave like patients with damage to the brain's frontal lobes, a condition that can cause overly impulsive and insensitive behavior. The possession of power changes power holders, usually in ways invisible to them, by triggering activation of the behavioral approach system based in the left frontal cortex and fueled by the neurotransmitter dopamine. It's automatic. Nevertheless, it makes powerful people quick to act on appetites, to detect opportunities for material and social rewards such as food, money, attention, sex, and approval. They think about sex more and flirt more flagrantly. Poorly attuned to others, they pay little attention to others' feelings and assess their attitudes, interests, and needs inaccurately. Now, how many times have you been on a date and you say something to the person and you can tell they're not really listening, and then they respond in a way that's like almost completely out of context and you can tell they're just not there? This is kind of what I think of as what they're describing. Politeness be damned, they act rudely, indulging their own whims. The biological obverse marks the powerless. Their lack of power activates the brain's inhibitory system, centered in the right frontal cortex. So the person with the power is activating their behavioral approach system in the left frontal cortex, and the person without power is activating the brain's inhibitory system, which is in the right frontal cortex, which directs attention to threat and punishment. These are relationship killers, and sets in motion avoidant behavior. It also ushers in negative feelings, notably anxiety and depression, virtually hallmark emotions of those denied power. If the thwarting of identity isn't distressing enough, add in the lack of partner responsiveness. So if that's not a relationship killer, I don't know what is. First of all, people with anxiety and depression have a really hard time maintaining relationships. And second of all, the inhibitory system, which is activating threat and punishment sensors, is going to definitely kill any interest someone has. You have to take risks to be in the dating pool and date people. You have to be willing to take risks, willing to be vulnerable. That inhibitory system is just going to kill that desire. So it's not enough to say treat others how you would like to be treated. Reciprocity is a continual balancing act, and relationships can be easily damaged, and a lack of reciprocity can be very damaging. So it's important to stay aware of the status of power dynamics early on. And all this said, it's commonly thought that in most or all love relationships there is some imbalance in power, and that one of the parties just accepts that. But that is later on in the relationship. I am talking about the early days of dating, and that is when I think there really needs to be as much equality as possible. Okay, so thank you for watching.